Hello, Family Ministry Academy friends. I am here with the super fun to listen to because she has an accent, Janine McNally. Welcome.
Hey, Amber. Amber,
Okay,
Amber.
so she is formerly from Australia, and I did not just bring her here because I enjoy listening to her accent. She runs a ministry that I'm going to let her tell you about because it's going through like a name change and stuff. But she is really one of the voices that is trying to educate children's ministry leaders about Generation Alpha. So why don't you just kick us off and tell us about you and your ministry right now?
Sure. So my little ministry was started just nearly 2 years ago. It's called Grace for Kids. And at the time, I was creating resources for kids ministry. My oldest daughter recently said, I think your ministry is having an identity crisis because I had started to broaden my focus to creating resources for leaders and parents to reach kids. So I am now changing it to equipping fireflies. I know it's a little strange. It's based on my book. When you see fireflies, which if you read the forward in my book, you'll understand why it's called that. But fireflies, when our kids went out to play, I would tell them, come in when you see the fireflies. It meant it was getting dark. And I always told them nothing good ever happens at nighttime. All crime seems to happen during the night. So come on in where it's safe and light. And the fireflies were an indication of that. You couldn't miss them. They were in clouds all through our backyard. So I've just decided, you know what? We are fireflies. The brighter we shine, the more the kids will be attracted to the light, not just our light, but the light. So he said, I am the light of the world, but he also said, you are the light of the world. So don't hide your light under a bushel.
I love it. I love it. So we're going to dive in today. I don't know if you guys have started learning about Generation Alpha. I think I don't even know all the generations. I'm a millennial, and I think I'm a Generation Z. Um,
Uh-huh.
then there's like I don't know.
Oh, you're a generation. Z is just the ones that you're a Y.
Am I a Y?
Yeah,
I'm
because
36. What am I? Am I
a Y.
Y? Am I
Yeah,
Y? Okay.
yeah.
And then
The
it was
older,
Z. It was Y then Z because that's how the
yes,
alphabet goes.
the Z's. I think the oldest are turning around 27 this year. I
Okay.
believe.
So now we're in Generation Alpha. And Generation Alpha is a lot different, not just because they went through COVID, which
Mhm.
woo. So why don't you just kick us off? What what are some of the distinguishing factors of Generation Alpha? What's making them different than other? Obviously, every generation is different just because the world is different, but
Right.
this has got a lot. So just give us a light, maybe don't make our heads explode, but just a light, like what is Generation Alpha?
Okay, so well, Generation Alpha, this is actually their last year before the next generation begins, and we're thinking it's going to be beta, but I don't know that that's been defined yet. So their ages 0 through 14 of this year. So obviously, when they went through COVID, they were babies, little kids, and the experts say that the younger we go through something traumatic, the more it will impact us. And we have not yet seen, I don't think, the full impact of what that whole 3 year period is going to have on this generation. And honestly, a lot of what we talk about with Generation Alpha, a lot of it is predictions and guesses because a 5 year old can't tell us what they're like. But it's honestly, they link alphas to the millennial generation because, for the most part, millennials are the parents. And you tend to at least follow your parents for a while and adopt their characteristics. So yeah, they are different. Obviously, COVID changed everything for everybody. But the other thing that's huge in their age is the fact that they were born into technology. I know for me, I won't even tell you what age I was when I got my first phone. But when I asked my kids, do you remember when you got your first technology and what was it for? For the most part, for them, it was like a computer, a desktop computer for school. Their phones came later. Generation Alpha, the entire generation, technology was already there when they were born. So these little 2 year olds already know how to work an iPad. Uh, Give them a phone, they'll be able to get to the games really quickly. They just know because from the time they were born, it was there. So that has changed so many things, like the way they learn, the way they think, the way they see the world. They can see everything so globally because all it requires is a search on Google, and they will find everything good and bad, which is part of the challenge for us as leaders and parents is what do we do about that? So everything is different the way they communicate, they are on text all the time and they are seemingly very engaged, but in fact, they're very lonely. And you see this in Generation Z, the ones before them, the teenagers, still the older teenagers, they are the most anxious, most disconnected generation because they have gone through these ages from preteen through middle school and high school with this artificial connection through technology. So, yes, kids are still kids. I was having a conversation with someone the other day about that. Yes, they're still kids, but their world is so different that they respond to that. Look at the family. The nuclear family is gone. They're the percentage of normal two-parent families is going to be less than 50% soon. So the majority of the kids, I know the number of combinations between blended families and single parents and same-sex parents, that's another issue. The number of combinations is enormous, and so there's so many things there to cater to. The whole identity crisis has just blown up with trans being trendy. It used to be a medical condition, now it's a trend. So between mental health issues, this is the most medicated generation ever.
And
The
so
identity
young. I mean, you hear of
crisis.
a 5-year-old being medicated
Oh yeah.
for anxiety or depression. I'm like, you're 5. You should be a little baby
I
still.
know, OCDC, ADHD, OCD, PTSD. I mean, there's so many initials for so many things, and they medicate for them all for the most part. And I have no doubt that some require medication, but others maybe just need good parenting or a time to grow up and mature.
Or
So
a
yeah,
better environment or
mhm. It's a different world. It's going crazy, and it's reflecting on our kids.
and then you have all of the dangers that then come with social media. And I know we even in the church world, we've talked about this a while. I mean, your identity is formed on how many likes you get or how many shares. And that's
Oh yeah.
all because that is their world. It is tech, it is social. They can't really relate in person. Like we joke, like my son is 12, so he'll be
Uh-huh.
13 this year. He's right at the, I guess, the beginning
Right.
of
Yeah. Yep.
Generation Alpha. I'm like, man, is he ever going to be able to find an adjusted female? So like, hey, if you all have girls, I am fine for an arranged marriage for my son when he's older. If you have some nice, wonderful Christian girls, he'll be really tall.
Yep. Yep.
But I worry for this generation because it is so much.
Mm-hmm. And I worry for Generation Z. Uh, our youngest just graduated from Colorado Christian University, a very good school, very biblically based, quality students for the most part. I mean, it's not just Christian in name, it truly is a good school. And she was telling us stories all the time about friends who are committing suicide or having suicidal thoughts or cutting themselves or having panic attacks. And I said to her one day, Jamie, what on earth is going on there? Can you not find any healthy friends? I was being a mom. I'm like,
Yeah.
seriously, And she said, Mom, look at the world we are growing up in. So it clicked. I was like, you are right. It's impacting everybody, and especially these younger generations who are too young to cope. They can't cope with the decisions that are facing them about, when they Google something because they don't have anybody to ask the question to, or they don't trust anybody enough to give them the answer, or they're embarrassed. They Google and they get information,
Mhm.
uncontrolled information, and they're too young to discern, what is good, what is bad, what's right, what's wrong. And I don't think that the church has woken up yet to that whole issue and started to address it. And I don't believe that parents are equipped either to study and learn about all those issues. They just don't know. So the
Mhm.
kids hear that it's not addressed at church, parents don't know the answers, so they go to the internet.
Mhm. Or
That's
school or
scary.
friends or
Or school
TV.
or
I mean,
friends.
all the stuff that's being shoved at them that is saying the exact opposite of what God's word. And it's
Scary.
yeah, if they're not grounded. So, we are church leaders. So, what do we as church leaders, and I know like friends This is not all going to be covered in this video. This is your light
Oh,
introduction to to Generation Alpha. There is so much. So just buckle up. We got this. But Jenny, what should the church be doing if maybe maybe kind of give us a broad and then maybe a couple like one or two tangibles that we in our individual churches could start this week to start ministering to Generation Alpha?
sure. Well, for the most part, millennials, which reflects on Generation Alpha, their opinions of the church are that it's irrelevant, untrustworthy, and not worthy, therefore, of their time or belief. So they're saying we're irrelevant. They'll come to church. It's the same old, same old. Their questions aren't answered. It's not being connected to real life, and they leave feeling unfulfilled and thinking that it's irrelevant. So they go elsewhere. Second, untrustworthy. They are very reticent to trust any institutions, especially with their kids. So we need to reverse that by building trust. And I address that in my book a lot, about how do we address safety and security issues with the kids? How do we begin to be transparent as a church leadership and begin to address the disunity and the dysfunction and the power plays and the politics and all those, failed leadership for all different reasons. If we don't start to address that, it's not going to change. We also need to point them and realize that, you know what, they accuse us of being hypocritical. And honestly, when you look at it, they're right. We're sinners. And when we're not going to see that change, let's
Mhm.
face it, you and I are sinners. No matter how close we draw to God and how long we are saved for, we continue to sin. Hopefully we improve as we, not in sin, but in our behavior. But the answer to that is to point them to the real perfect person, in Jesus Christ, and follow him. Don't look at us, look at him. So we need to do those two things, become more relevant, become more trustworthy. And the worst of all is that they are therefore saying it's God is no longer worthy of belief.
Mm.
If God doesn't have answers, we don't have answers to the questions of suffering in the world, why does a loving God cause suffering?
Mhm.
All those apologetic kinds of
Mhm.
questions, if they're not addressed, and God therefore is not trustworthy, and we're not connecting our Bible stories to real life. For example, I don't know how many times you heard the story of Noah's Ark growing up. I can't tell you how many times,
Mhm.
but I
Mhm.
never heard any teacher talk to me about what it must have felt like to be Noah when he was building an ark in a community where there had been no rain, and no doubt everybody from the town came out and laughed at him. That sounds a lot like bullying to me. Have you kids ever experienced bullying? We can connect the Bible story to real life, and I don't believe we're doing that. Our curriculums don't do that. I have never seen them have, by the way, here are some questions for real life. I I I don't think we need to necessarily change the curriculums so much as we just need to give it some thought going into a class and thinking, how can I connect this story to real life? How can I apply it? Preachers try to do that with their application. We need to do that in our classrooms. And what's happening is, therefore, they're saying, I don't believe anymore. A whole new category of Christians, for the most part, or former church attendants, calling themselves nuns. I thought for a long time it was nones, but it's nuns. I have no religion, none. And that's scary because about 78% of those admit to growing up in the church.
Mhm.
Therefore, what are we doing wrong?
Yes.
So I ask myself those questions. We need to adapt what we're doing to the culture. We need to address these hard questions. We need to adjust our learning and teaching styles. Their learning styles are completely different. No more rows, lots of circles, lots of talking, lots of questions, especially as the kids get older and into those preteen. Oh gosh, don't even get me started about those preteens. It, they tell us that if you took a scan of the brain at the preteen age and at the preschool age, they look very similar. Preschoolers are doing what? They're learning language.
Mhm.
Preteens are learning how to become adults. They're going through this whole transitional period from child to teen to adult. Their brains are changing just as rapidly as preschoolers. And I had never thought about that before.
Mhm.
but that makes them completely open to
Hmm.
change.
Yeah.
Cognitive pruning, they call it. I'm going to prune out things that I think I don't need. Chop off a branch of a tree. I don't need that. I'm going to prune. We don't want them to prune God out, but they decide, is church worth it? Or would it be better just to have fun at soccer or baseball? Are the people at church worth having relationships with, or are my friends more worthwhile? So they begin to chop things out of their life, prune things out during that time of change. And we've got to take advantage of that few
Hmm.
years of window. That's when the questions start to be answered. We thought years back, not that long ago, that kids were leaving at college. I believe they're leaving in middle school. They're still there because their parents take them, but they've already left the building. Their heads, their hearts, their minds are gone. And that finishes there, but it begins in preschool when these questions, when this whole brain growth is happening and they start to ask these questions. That's children's ministry. That's where we're at. They're the ones we need to focus on.
Yeah. And we got to lay that foundation because the same reason the millennials left church is because they weren't given it. It's that
Yeah.
let's just love Jesus fluff, and that doesn't create a resilient disciple. That I'm not questioning somebody's salvation, but is that creating disciples? We have to lay that foundation. We have to ground these kids in the word. We have to teach doctrine and theology and apologetics. We have to give them the answers to why it does matter. And while we're doing this, we have to love on them. Last year, I took a group of preteens. I love preteens. They're my favorite age group.
Hey.
I took them to a Superstart event, and I would rather be an hour and a half early somewhere than 2 minutes late kind of person. So we were there extra early, and I pulled this deck of cards out of my bag, and they were like conversation cards, and I had 5 girls right beside me, and I asked them. The card was, "Do you feel that you are loved unconditionally?"
No.
All 5 of these girls said no. One of them was my niece, and I'm like, and then I asked my son, who was right beside me. And he wasn't paying attention. I'm like, hey, are you loved unconditionally? He goes, yeah. And I asked another little boy, yeah. And
Ah,
it's like that right there. That's the picture of this generation is girls especially. They're struggling. They're struggling with all of the inside feelings. And that relationship, that authenticity in the church is so, so important. And I think the two things, and I wholeheartedly agree with everything you said, the two things that they need so much is a strong foundation and authentic love from the church staff,
yeah, what I was going to say when you
volunteers, staff, all that. Yeah.
asked for a couple of things we could do this week, one of the things that's always been on my heart, obviously, is a clear presentation of the gospel. If we are wishy-washy and waffly with our gospel message, and we're abstract when they need concrete, and we're unclear when they need simple, they're going to think, I got saved when I was this, but am I really? And that lack of assurance as they move into those critical years are going to make them really wobbly with their
Mhm.
faith. So we need a very clear gospel presentation and a gospel message. Whether they believe it or not, we can't change, but we can do our side of it. The other thing is relationships before everything. That's one of the chapters in my book. Before anything else on a Sunday, what we need to focus on is loving them, not just on a Sunday, but encouraging our teachers to go out during the week and spend time with them. I just finished my dissertation research, and one of the questions was along that line. I said, if you have all the money and time in the world as a children's ministry leader, what would you do? And a ton of people said that they would go during the week and they would either have dinner with all
Mhm.
of their families, visit their school activities, their sports games. They all wanted that relationship time that obviously a lot of people are busy, and they
Yeah. If
don't
you're
have
working a
that
job
time.
and doing laundry and
Yeah. But
family,
that's
yeah, it's
that's the
hard.
desire of their heart, and they're on the right track. That's what the kids need, because it's all artificial technology and they need people.
Yeah. Yes. They need that person that they can go to when they're having those feelings
Yep.
that don't feel safe or they need somebody. I had a little girl who extreme anxiety, started a new school. Bad time to start a new school is when you're an anxiety ridden child, and she
Mhm.
wasn't making friends fast. And I would get texts on her sitting at the bus stop at 6:30 in the morning. I would not be necessarily awake at 6:30 in the morning, but you better believe I woke up for that text, and I didn't fuss at her. I don't even know that her mom knew she texted me every morning that morning. I didn't care because I'm like, man, what an honor to be that person that she feels that she can go to.
That's what I was
Um,
thinking.
and this generation needs it.
Yeah.
So church leaders, this is your assignment for the week. Build some relationships, and it matters with mom and dad too, especially those millennials that are not there. This same family that I'm talking about, mom was very different than me. Mom had a very different upbringing than me, and if you looked at my former very conservative Baptist church, visibly, she wasn't your typical. Let's just put that. I mean, she's
Mhm.
tattooed, she's pierced, she's got a past, and
Mhm.
that is not me. I mean, I might wear hair glitter, but that's not the persona. And then church leaders kind of have that like, oh, we can't be friends because you're going to judge me. But
Right.
because I had the relationship with her, I could text me like, hey, where you been? I missed you. And excuse. I'm like, I'm not judging. I just care about you. And she's like, I
Yeah.
know, and that means so much. Relationships are so important. So that is go make a relationship this week, build on it. The kids need it, the moms and dads need it, Generation Alpha desperately need it.
Gosh, yes.
So let's shift a little bit to moms and dads. So we at Family Ministry Academy, we are wanting to equip, encourage, empower mom and dad to be the primary disciplers like the Bible commands. So how can we, the church leaders, be ministering well to mom and dad, or grandma or grandpa that are taking care of Generation Alpha?
Mm.
What can we do to help them?
What a question.
And you
So,
have 2 seconds. Go.
so my former church had a family ministry and youth ministry person. It was all in one. And when he started, they told him, don't worry about family ministry, focus on youth ministry. And I was like, oh my gosh. And for the entire time, he was only there a year
Huh, I
before he,
wonder why he burned out.
well, yeah, it wasn't a healthy scenario. I left just before him. And, but it as I was doing children's ministry, I realized that need to reach the parents. But I had 120 kids between Sundays and Wednesdays, and I had the parents that represented those children on top of it. Plus, I had 70 volunteers. And if you do the math and you add that up, it's the size of a church, and I was one person. So for me to try and reach the kids and reach the parents, it was too much. So in my opinion, it should not fall on the shoulders of children's ministry leaders. It should be either from a family ministry person, should be from the small group ministry people. The senior pastor, he's the one to communicate those values. But
He
to
should
me,
be connected too. I just left a situation where they weren't. I'm like, oh, you can't reach all of them, but the senior pastor should care about families. Just
oh
go.
yeah, well, he needs definitely care about his core families and then trickle it down. But
Yeah.
it I think part of it is budget priorities. They think of kids as being childcare. The budget is the lowest. We're so busy running around asking for donations of candy at Easter and fall. It should not
Mhm.
be that way. I've never seen the men's ministry asking for donation of eggs for their men's ministry breakfast. It's because our budget is small, and
Because
therefore we,
kids take stuff too. Like
oh
they're
yeah, it's the
kids.
most stuff intensive ministry there is. You don't even want to think about how much stuff is involved in that. But we need to, if we prioritized kids and families, we'd be equipping the staff and having somebody there to reach specifically to reach and communicate that need to parents. We need to go back to the beginning. They weren't discipled. The millennial parents, for the most part, they if you ask them, they're like, I don't know how to. That's their first response, which I think is partly an excuse because there are materials out there, but I also think there's an element of truth in that. And then they're too busy,
Mhm.
way too busy. They overschedule their families, and they, in a bid to try to make their kids happy,
Mhm.
I think is the wrong goal. But in a bid to make them happy, they take them from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, and church is the lowest on the priority order. And it's the opposite way around. And parents are going to be the ones held responsible and accountable for this. So they may say they don't know how to do it, so they need to figure out how to do it. They may say they don't have time, so they need to start to put boundaries in place. And where do we come into that as the church? Encouraging them to do that and equipping them with resources and training and things like that.
And trying
That
to light a fire under them. They wouldn't be so lukewarm if they understood their command and had the passion to do it.
oh
And I
yeah, well,
think,
they've
but you
abdicated
can't
that.
make them do that, but it starts from on high,
Mhm.
leadership, all the way down to all your volunteers. Think about your wording, your messaging. You don't want to beg them to teach their kids. Man, what an honor that you have this command. Like, light that fire under them.
Yep. Yep. God's not, and when we get to heaven, he's not going to say, children's ministry leaders, why didn't you reach these kids?
Yeah.
He's going to say, parents, why didn't you? And that to me was the fire that was under me. I don't need that one to be lit because I'm like terrified to stand before the Lord and have him say something like, you didn't do that. You should have. You
I
can't.
have no greater joy than knowing my children walk with the Lord. I'm
Yep.
paraphrasing, but you guys
Mhm.
know what I'm saying.
I know. I gotcha. I know the verse. Yep. Yep.
Man, okay. So you might be feeling watching this that this is a lot, but it's necessary. Generation Alpha is very different. Millennial parents are very different. And I think I mean, you all see the stats. You've seen people walking away from the church. If you look around your own church, my generation is the lowest attended generation. I have always been one of very few parents in my age group at church. That's I'm gonna guess a lot of your churches are echoing this. So there's just a lot. This was a lot, but this is a soft introduction for you guys to Generation Alpha. I really encourage you guys to do some more research. Janine, where can they get the book When You See Fireflies? Where's the best place to go get it?
Probably Amazon. I have so if you buy the book, you get the audio version for free. There's a code inside. So if you like audio, you can do that. You can buy the digital version on my website, and you can buy the audio on my website, but you can get the paperback on Amazon or visit me at a conference.
And what is the website for now?
It is equippingfireflies.com.
Ooh, so she's in
I
the
am.
middle of a rebrand, but we already got the
I
website
am.
change. So
Mhm.
equippingfireflies.com. And then just to remind you all of the tangible thing that we're challenging you to do this week is build some relationships, get some moms or dads or grandmas and grandpas and go out to coffee, invite yourself to a ball game with the kids, build those relationships, and then look around and see where are the areas that need some more depth. Do you need to add in apologetics? Do you need to add in more application? You're not having to overhaul any programs or curriculum or any of that, but where does depth need to be added? And I really think those two things, if you do those two things this week, you're starting to make a difference for this generation.
Absolutely.
Janine, thank you so much for just imparting some of the wisdom that you have in this. You're one of the few voices right now talking on Generation Alpha, and we're almost out of Generation Alpha.
That surprises me. We should be talking, we need to talk about them more.
Yes, and I think as we see the ramifications of the last couple of years on this generation, it's going to be more. But let's start now. Whether that's one of those babies in Generation Alpha, or it's like my son who's, technically out of children's ministry at the tail end of it. Let's do what we can to give them the foundation so that they can stand firm in this crazy, crazy world. So Janine, thank you so much. Family Ministry Academy, go make some connections, go order Janine's book from Facebook, check out her website, and we will talk to you all soon.